What's up, bookworms? Welcome to episode 99 of the Cantina Book Club podcast, where readers can find interviews with authors of all genres. I'm Megan, self-proclaimed content queen, here to bring you insights from the authors themselves. Each week features a Cantina conversation with an author talking about their book. Sometimes they're returning guests, and sometimes it's someone new. So please be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on an episode. And feel free to browse through existing episodes so that you can catch a previous interview about a book you finished. The interview will be ready when you are. Just a heads up that I often use adult language to express my feelings towards these authors and their work, whether the characters need to get their shit together or encouraging the badass FMC to just fuck it all and burn it all to the ground. Just please be mindful around listening ears. Books coming out. Books coming out this week, August 12th, The Incredible Kindness of Paper by Evelyn Skye. As of this recording, I have not had a chance to in yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. For those of you who are interested in finding other bookish podcasts, I encourage you to find Book Podcast Connection on Instagram. And it's a group of over 100 bookish podcasts. Depending on what you're looking for, there's something for everyone who's looking to get a little bit more out of their reading list. I definitely encourage you guys to check it out. Today's episode features a chat with Marie Bostwick. We're talking about her book, The Book Club for Troublesome Women. That book is available now. Historical fiction lovers definitely will enjoy this one. This and also is emotional. And anybody who's familiar with The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan and who knows what an iconic and the impact that it had across generations and across just women from all over the world. This Marie Bostwick's book is born from that era and from that book release. And I really enjoyed talking to Marie. This was such a fun conversation and just listening about her, just reflecting with her about gender norms and society's expectations and how crazy of an impact that the feminine mystique can on the world. Without further ado, here is Marie Bostwick. Okay, so today we've got Marie Bostwick. We're talking about her book, The Book Club for Troublesome Women. That book is available now. Marie, thank you so much for joining me today. I loved this book. I just kind of girl power, and also it was I'm a sucker for historical fiction and anything that has a developmental sisterhood thing going on. And also I got emotional towards the end. I think it was a Margaret story mostly resonated with me the most. So I'm excited to dig a bit deeper today.
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I've written, 22 books, and I have to say, I think this is my favorite. I just love this book, and I loved it from the first moment I got the idea.
I love it too. Even from reading, I think I read the blurb before I got into it, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, okay, let's go. So can you give a summary of the book so that people who haven't read it can follow along with the conversation?
Sure. So it's set in Northern Virginia in 1963. Northern Virginia, not very far from Washington, D.C., and all of the change that's societally beginning to sort of bubble up there. And yet it's in a suburb called Concordia, where things are not changing. And we have four main characters: Margaret, Charlotte, Viv, and Bitsy. And everybody in this neighborhood is new. So everybody's still kind of looking for their people, who are they going to hang out with? And so when Charlotte, who is very intriguing, moves to the neighborhood, Margaret kind of comes up with this idea of a book club as a way to get to know her, because she really does want to get to be friends with this woman. And Charlotte is having none of it. She's not a joiner, but she says, if you guys will be willing to read a book that matters, and the book she has in mind is The Feminine Mystique, then maybe she's in. So that's what they do. They read many books, but the first of the books the book clubs read is The Feminine Mystique, and it changes everything.
Yes, absolutely. And I love a messy story, and when you put characters into when you shake things up, ruffle feathers. I love it, especially poor Walt. We'll try to be spoiler free, but Walt, he was on a little roller coaster of acceptance there.
Yep. So Walt is Margaret's
Yeah.
husband. So for those who are tuning in, and he
Yeah.
travels a really interesting journey too. I mean, the main characters are the four members of the book club, but the husbands also matter. And Walt in particular does have a real transformation in his life. And it's good because he needed one.
I know. It was like, because we always want to look at the husbands too, because that's one thing that also that I was surprised to reflect on is that just how nobody likes change, right? And how
Mm,
much this book really did shake up things for men. And
yeah.
I sympathize with men in that era to an extent
Yes.
who had things a certain way and had
Hmm.
things taken care of, and then it's all of a sudden their wives are being empowered, be like, no, this is normal to want more. It's
Right.
okay to want more. And it's just, it's not radical.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many people who feel that same way, so many wives and women who feel that same way.
Right.
And yeah, it got me thinking about, I guess I can empathize with Walt a little bit in that respect
Mhm.
for sure.
But I think, what Walt learns is that for a lot of people, the very, very stultifying gender roles, that this is the only way to be a woman or this is the only way to be a man, was really just as confining for men as for women in a lot of ways. And so
Yeah.
when that change came along, it's allowed a situation where for a lot of people who choose that, husbands and wives can be more of an equal partner in the marriage. And I wanted to write that because I've been married for more than 40 years. And, me being able to have a career has actually made it possible for my husband to explore things that he wants to try, to have some, chance to chase his own dreams too. And in the days when it was all just he's the breadwinner and it's all on his shoulders, gosh, that's a lot of pressure on a guy. And so, when the
Yeah.
burden is
Yeah.
shared, it makes for a little more equality in the relationship. And it can, in many cases, allow both members of the marriage to be able to have a chance to explore and try new things and push their boundaries a little bit as far as what they might want to do with their lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think partially why Margaret's journey resonated with me a little bit more is because I lost my job back in March, and so it was maybe a month later I was reading this,
Mm,
or maybe 6 weeks later. So I was still like feeling a certain way in it. I'm still like in the like it was just basically they eliminated my position, and there was like
mm,
very little that I had impact on it.
right.
And I've been in my professional career for 12, 15 years, and
Mm,
so I'm like I'll be fine. I'm okay. I know I'm a badass bitch. Like I'll get this going. Like I can. This is not going to get me down. This is not like the end of the world for me. But just reading a Margaret storyline in particular, I didn't expect for it to touch me on that level. Like
mm,
I just didn't know. I didn't see it coming, and that's such a good thing because towards the end I was like, oh my gosh, go Margaret, like seriously, and just her feelings about not only just on her professional ambitions, but just her reflections on it
yeah,
too, and how she wanted more and she knew she could do more, and it was there seemed like certain obstacles in her way, and she was just trying to do she wasn't she was a little inhibited by the system
sure.
and by her like inner circle, but then she found that sisterhood. They were insistent on supporting her
Mhm.
and pushing her. But it was just I think also the epilogue too where she's also reflecting on everything, and it's just oh my gosh, it was just like so touching, like it turned it like the way her journey ended up, and it was just I think just like the emotional my emotional state over this past few months when I was like reading it, I was like okay, I was like I gotta take like I needed a minute after finishing the book for sure.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, these women set in 1963, they're facing a particular kind of circumstance, roadblocks that thankfully most of us are not having to
Yes.
deal with as much. It's, not a perfectly or equal playing field yet, but it's better. But it's still relevant to modern women because guess what? We are constantly reinventing ourselves. That is just, I think
Yeah,
the nature
absolutely.
of, and some of that, if you're a woman who's chosen to, has kids and a family, as your kids age, things change all the time. And then sometimes,
Yes.
like you are, so, your job all of a sudden that's been this thing and you've kind of hung your hat and probably your identity to a degree. We do that with our jobs. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden
Yeah.
it's changing, not by your choice, that will really pull you up short. But I've discovered, because I've been around a while, that those moments are also, oftentimes like the little flag that's saying, hey, guess what? Here's an opportunity for something different and maybe even something better. So
Yeah,
reinvention is just part of
yeah.
life, right? We're always doing it.
It really yeah, exactly, and I was laid off when COVID was happening
Mm,
too, so it wasn't anything like I've been through this before, and it was just yeah, and it was at the point where my husband, he's totally supporting me, but he I like, there are times where I'm like, "Okay, God, what am I gonna do?" Blah, 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 and he's got the similar confidence that I do. He's, "No, you're awesome, you have years of experience, and you're very skilled. It's gonna be okay, we'll just keep at it." And we'll figure out because I've been like marketing myself as a freelancer, still applying to jobs and stuff like that. I'm exploring different things, but I remember just talking to my therapist about it. This could be a gift.
yeah.
She's like, this could be a
Yeah.
gift. And I was like, thank you for saying that exact sentence because
Yeah.
it's just such a more healthy and positive way to look at it. But yeah, like that's these women's stories because you've got yeah, of the four women besides Margaret, Charlotte, she's just the non-conventional one.
Yes. She's a lot of fun to
And
write, that one.
she's an artist.
Yeah.
Yes, I bet. She was the one where you could just throw that attitude. Like you could just like the no nonsense
Yeah.
and
Well, and yet
confidence
she has
and
her own,
all
she's
that.
got confidence issues, but she maybe hides them a little better. But she is a pot stirrer. And I do love to write a
Yeah.
pot stirrer, right? I mean, these are the people who make stuff happen, whether they intend to or not. And she's just, yeah, she's bold and brash. And, no wonder Margaret is so attracted to her just from the moment she encounters her and they haven't even spoken yet. There's just something about
Yeah.
Charlotte.
Exactly, exactly. And I thought, yeah, even like the collective personalities were like they just worked so well together. They all complemented each other. And as someone, if someone wasn't sure, there was one other group member who was like just inserting little opinions in here
Yes.
and inserting that confidence or like reassuring the reassurance of among the four of them because there's what was it? Vivian, I like her husband was so like a dreamboat,
Oh, yeah, no.
like perfect
We
night,
all want Tony, right? No, Tony's
yes.
fabulous. But, it's true.
But then you have for
These women, I mean,
oh, go ahead.
they're at various moments, they all kind of rescue each other, right? But it's not they also find something within themselves. Every one of them finds something within themselves that they maybe didn't know they had and as the book began. And I think the reason they're able to do that is because they are surrounded by this supportive group of women. So they're not only receiving, they're giving. And that's the way ideally that it should work.
Oh, absolutely. Like just a group of friends, like your support
Yeah.
system. It's like you're gonna exactly. It's like the exchange, and that's what you get out of it, and that's what makes those friendships, that those bonds, so much stronger. Because it's just no, like you have a handful of people who are in your corner,
Right.
and will give you that extra push
Yep.
for sure. And then Bitsy, the last one, the youngest one, and I was just the equestrian. Is that how you pronounce it? Like
Yes,
she,
yes.
the
Well,
little
or,
yes,
sometimes we just like she's horse crazy, right? I mean, either we've been that girl, or we've known that girl. I have one of my granddaughters right now who is definitely in her horse crazy phase. When she is much more interested in horses than boys, and I'm crossing my fingers that it stays that way for a good long time, And so yeah, she is just all about animals and she's envisioning a career for herself. Her secret dream is she wants to be a vet. Well, today that wouldn't be so shocking, but back in the day,
yeah,
man, for a woman to become a veterinarian is trying to push a very big boulder up a very steep hill. And she's not able to do
yeah,
it. She's discouraged from doing this. And it's hard for her. So one of the things, what she does is, and I find if you look back, there were a lot of women who maybe had ambitions for themselves that they were not able to achieve in that period of time. So they did what seemed like the next best thing. They married the person in the profession that they were aspiring to. So, they wanted to be a doctor, but they couldn't. So they married a doctor. Well, Bitsy wanted to be a veterinarian. So she married a veterinarian, which seemed kind of like the next best thing. But, is it? It's not the same.
Yeah, it's and it's one thing, it's like that makes sense because it's okay, shared interests
Right.
but yeah, it's much different in 1960s
Yeah.
Virginia, and it's so much different, especially wasn't there like a huge age gap
There was a
too, I
very
think?
big age gap
Like
between her and her husband too. Yeah,
yeah.
and she's really, she kind of is envisioning a partnership, and it just doesn't turn out to be that way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like I was rooting for all four of
Yeah,
them. I was like, you all have the right to feel this way and to want these things. It's okay.
yeah,
It just sucks that you were born in that decade that you were. And it's rough. And yeah, even the simplest thing of like when Margaret like she started earning her own money and she couldn't even cash a check without her husband's signature. I'm
right?
like, yeah, there's reminders of that.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, like that's how things were. And
Well, and that's
like, you
and
know,
it's not I mean, when you look at boy, that's not very long ago, that right? That's people's mothers and grandmothers, and something that's been interesting for me and actually made me really happy is how people who were not alive in those times have been discovering this piece of our history that, so many things that women today can take for granted, like being able to get a business loan without having to have a male
yes.
co-signer, open a checking account, get a
Get your own
credit
credit
card.
card.
I mean,
Yes.
there
Yeah.
was even laws that women couldn't serve on juries, and I mean that they could be stricken from a jury pool just for being women. There didn't need to be another reason. And that was not that long ago. That was like in the late 1980s before that was struck down. So I think it's been really
Yeah.
good to kind of remind people, that the world was really different not very long ago.
It really no, it's so true. Because 'cause I'm, like, thinking, okay, 60s, like, my parents were born in the 50s.
Mhm.
That's what that is.
Right.
That's how I can gauge that yeah, that perspective, the context.
Yeah.
Because I can't. Because so many people like to it's hard I understand where, like, today we're so detached, we're so removed
Mhm.
from that concept that so many people today, like, it's easy to forget or dismiss, but it's no, there's proof, it's decades, like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was an icon and amazing for a reason. She's the reason why women can have these
Yeah.
self-sustaining capabilities.
Yeah.
Like it's to me, it's just like when I reflect on that, and then I think that's partially why I'm a sucker for historical fiction, is because it's just to learn these
Yep.
things and to put it into context and one person's story and experience during that time. And I just, yeah, and the fact that you had all four of these women who are different walks of life,
Mhm.
different experiences, different ambitions, different backgrounds, different family kind of similar family makeups, but different too, and just how they fit together and how they all find that common ground of how they're being affected by this monumental
Right.
literature.
Well, and yes, and you bring up a good point. One of the things that's important in the book is just the power of books. And because as I said, of course, they start off with the feminine mystique, but they read all kinds of books, and these books impact them in different ways. And I've been a member of a book club for, decades and decades. So, and I love book clubs. And I think they're really important because well, they do a few things. Number one, they get us out of our reading rut, right? Because most of us, we like what's comfortable and we may tend to read the same kind of book over and over. I know that's kind of my thing. I can't tell you how many books I have read over the years that I would never have picked up if my book club hadn't said, this is the book this month. And sometimes,
Yes.
I hate it just as much as I predicted I would. but but a lot of times I end up finding a book or a genre that I didn't know that I loved. So there's that. And it gives you this chance to talk and exchange ideas. Really, the worst book clubs are the ones where everybody loves the book because there's nothing to talk about at that point, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, well,
Yeah.
okay, let's drink wine. And then I really
Yeah.
love the ones where like half the people loved it, half the people hated it. But my favorite book clubs are the ones where I go in and I have a pretty set opinion. And by the time I leave, listening to my friends has changed my opinion, and I think that's so valuable, I think it's really good, especially right now. I think we live in a time where everybody is like, "Well, this is the side I've come down on, and I'm immovable." And you know what?
Absolutely.
It's okay to change your mind about things. It's
It's
okay.
seriously, it's
Yeah,
okay.
it's totally okay to listen to sound arguments and say, you know what?
Yes,
I hadn't thought about that. That's a very good point. I may
yes,
need to reconsider my
100%.
position. Yeah. So that's a really good thing. And I love that. So I love that books are bringing them together. Some of my favorite parts of the books, though, really are the book club meetings because I really tried to make them realistic. You know, yes, these women are friends, but they don't just sit around braid each other's hair all the time. They have
Yeah.
moments, they have arguments. So
They challenge each
they
other, yeah.
challenge each other. And that's what real friendship is, right? To me, my best friends are the ones who can tell me
Yeah,
the stuff I do not want to hear, but they can say it in a way so I will listen. And
yes.
that's important. We need those people in our
'Cause
lives.
you know that they love you.
Right.
You know that they're not trying to sabotage, like, your mental health or emotions or anything like that. They're
Exactly.
looking out for
Yeah,
you. They're like
exactly.
yeah, and I love
Yeah,
that.
and I love to,
I just like
so
there's
my
that
favorite one
value.
is like, sometimes we've all gone to the book club and guess what? We didn't read the book. And that happens
Yeah.
sometimes too. So I loved all of
You did. You had a nod to many book clubs, right?
right?
Or many female friendships where it's just like the conversation just takes
Yeah,
away
no, and you
and
come
yeah.
in and you're just like faking it, right? You don't want to be the person who's like, you don't want
Yeah.
to admit that you didn't, you're like, oh yeah, and you're playing fast and loose and you get caught.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Wait a second.
Wait a minute, did you
Like,
really?
why didn't you react at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny. I love that. It's that's just the title alone just is so attractive. It's just like book club for troublesome women. And I remember because sometimes I'll go to I have my monthly wine club membership where I go and I'll do my tasting and I'll take home my bottles of wine and
Mm,
they know me there by
yeah.
now. Like at the I go there at Cooper's Hawk. You probably heard of it. I don't know. Where are you from? Where are
I
you
live
living
in Washington State, so I don't.
Okay, so I don't think they have any, but it's basically like a winery
Okay.
slash restaurant, and they have a loyalty program. But they know me by now because like I go there. That's my monthly thing where I go have my me time. I bring my book
Uh,
and I have my tasting, and then so that whoever's serving me, they'll be like, "What are you reading?
I love it.
What are you reading today? What are you reading this month?" And they saw the cover, and I showed them, and I was like, "Yeah, it's like basically in the era of." The Feminine Mystique, Betty Friedan, and some of them are like their eyes light up. They're like, "Oh
I'll
yes!" Like they just it's like scandalous from 50 something years
Yeah,
ago. Yeah.
and they're such fun characters, though. No, this book has been, I just from the first minute I got the idea, I knew I was onto really something special. But I have been surprised at how well it's been received every single day. My email inbox is full. I'm really having a hard time keeping up with the
Oh,
email, which believe me, there are worse problems to have. And it just,
it's yeah. I was gonna say it's a fun problem to
oh yeah,
have.
so many
Like
book clubs
just
are
I bet
reading
this
this
is a little
one.
treat for you.
Say, oh, it's no, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And just things are, and the book's been out more than 2 months, and the sales actually are doing even better than they were right at the beginning. So it's great. And that tells
Yeah,
me this is readers talking to other readers. That's how that works, because reader
yeah,
to reader
yes.
recommendation is just everything.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. There's books that I'm like, I talk to some of my friends. Well, my best friend, I know she likes to read, but I don't want to pay for a book if I don't even know I'll like it. And she tries to look at libraries, but then some books that she's interested in have wait lists and stuff like that, or they're not always available. And so I was like, wait a second, because she knows what I do. So I was like, wait a second, like, how about I just suggest, I'll just lend you some books and you tell, then I'll get a good idea. And she was totally open minded to that. It's been a point where I'm like, I give her like a suspense, I give her a women's fiction, I give her historical fiction, I'll give her a romance and see like how she feels about it.
Hmm.
And then, but it's funny to like text her. I'm like, oh, which one did you finish? Did you get this one? Did you get that one? And then I ask her, okay, would you be willing to listen to the interviews that I've done on the books that you enjoy? I was like, I know you'll support me, but if you want to give me some pointers and just let me know what you think, because she knows me, and so it's like we've been best friends for I don't know, like 20 years, something like that. But I like that's things like exactly like I will give lists to anybody who needs them, if whatever genre they like, because I find myself to your point earlier, how you were like, I don't think I ever would have picked it up
Right.
had it not been presented to me.
No, and
And so
happens.
I've been pleasantly
Yeah,
surprised.
that happens all the time. I mean, and people who love books love to talk about books too. I got an email this week and it just cracked me up from a woman who she was in a restaurant with her kids, and she overheard a conversation at another table of women who were talking about books. She got up, walked over to their table, interrupted their conversation to tell them about the book club for troublesome women. And she was like, "You must
Yes.
read this book. You must read this." And her
Yeah.
kids were just mortified. They were like, "Mom, why would you?" She was like, "No, I don't care. Everyone should be reading this book." So I just loved that. I was like, "You go, girl. You do you. Yeah,
Yes.
keep it up."
And that's speaking to you and your ability, like that you wrote such a powerful story with relatable characters, and just maybe not relatable in the sense of the time period, but I imagine a lot of your reader base are women who know exactly what it was like
Oh, yes.
to live, or very familiar with these changes and just noticing the shifts and stuff like
But
that.
I think there's still so I did a really huge book tour, 11 states and 50 cities, and I've always done big book tours, but
That's
man,
a
this
lot.
time
Good
like
for
my
you.
events were just sold out. And yes, there were women who, had been through some, but there were also at every single stop there were 20 somethings and 30 somethings and 40 somethings who hadn't and who loved this book. Some came also carrying
Yeah.
a copy of The Feminine Mystique, which they had decided to read. And so yes, it's a different time period, but I think women can still relate to the kinds of things that these characters are dealing with, right? The need for reinvention, the trying to find sort of,
Yep.
what's the work-life balance? That's a real struggle. And particularly for
Yeah,
moms, working moms, it's a tough thing. And yes, dads are
it really
sharing
is.
more of the
We're
labor,
we're
but
amazing.
yeah, you guys are, but women are still carrying in most cases, a larger share of the daily work, the emotional work,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And so these
It is like the mental burden. It's a thing.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so these are still, even though these characters are living in a different era, I think what they're going through is relatable to just about any woman.
Absolutely. And I know it's like I'm grateful that my husband it's funny because he grew up in a one working parent
Mhm.
household where it was very traditional, where his mom, she grew up, I think she was like she's one of she has one girl and four brothers. So I think she found herself in that role of the traditional female household role of versus the four boys,
Mm.
her four brothers. But and in growing up, and they had the luxury of still having that one parent household, and like my father-in-law had such a great job growing up, and she as she got older, and she also babysat the neighborhood kids too, but as she got older she found like part-time jobs working at the school, working at the church, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So my husband, he grew up just seeing that. Where me, I grew up, both of my parents worked. My mom
Mhm.
worked and my dad worked. And even my grandmother, her mother-in-law was like, I have so much respect for you for doing what you do.
Mhm.
Like you work full time and you have two kids.
Mhm.
Like, or you
Mhm.
have three kids. I have a half sister. She's my brother and I were like 2 years apart. So it was like us being hauled around as
Right.
whatever my mom had to do,
Mhm.
find childcare and stuff like that. And she was like, I'm like, that's so awesome and powerful that my grandmother, who was raised eight kids in an Irish Catholic family, don't go saying to my Mexican mom,
Mm.
full time working mom, saying, I admire you for what you're doing,
That
for
is great.
working and
Yeah.
taking care of these kids. And
Mhm.
like, that's just, I love that. And it's just, yeah. And I just, so when I growing up, I just thought that was just normal for me.
Sure.
Two working parents,
Yeah.
working mom.
Yeah.
My mom was contributing to the income to the household. So I just saw that as normal for me. And then my husband, when we first started dating, he was like, no, if we get married, I hope you stay home with the kids. And I'm like, I'm I'm like just earned a degree. I was like, we started dating like when I was like 21,
Mhm.
22. So I was like, I did not go to school to stay at home with my adorable brats. I
Mm.
was like, I did not, that's not the trajectory I saw for me. And it's so funny because it's 15 years later. I would love to work, but at the same time, it's like I can see the appeal of just the home is my
Well,
work.
and
You know what
that's
I mean? Like the kids are my
I
work.
mean, that's really one of the, for me, kind of there's a lot in this book to unpack, but for me, one of the primary points is like you get to decide what works for you. you
Yes,
know, and
yes.
you
And I
got to
think
work
that's
it
what a
out
lot of
within
people
your
miss
family
about feminism.
circumstances, which are unique.
Yes,
And if I were to
yes.
point to like one, what one of my favorite sentence that's to me sort of encapsulates really what matters in the book is just this, and I know it so well that I can actually just kind of repeat it. And it's something that Margaret writes near the end of the story. And she says, "There are countless good and right ways to be a woman, and only two wrong. The first is to assume that your way is the way, the only way. And the second is to buy into that nonsense and spend the rest of your life limping down a road in shoes that will never fit." And that's it. It's different for
And that's
everybody.
you though. That's your perfect writing. That's your perfect
Thank you.
writing. Don't sell yourself short.
Well,
That's
and
yeah.
and that's, I mean, but there, and I think sometimes there are seasons too, right? There were seasons when I was home with my
Yeah.
kids, and there were seasons when I was working.
Yep.
And so and it's
Yep.
different for different people. And you just described two different families, right? Growing up, your husband's and yours. I was raised by a single mother who had four daughters and worked, and she was the breadwinner. So that was and by the
Yeah.
way, we were happy and you were happy. And so
Yeah.
there were lots of good ways to make these families work. And it's just every family has to work it out on their own. Every woman has to work it out on their own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whatever works. It seriously is. And then like as we got older and my husband saw like the benefits of me working,
Sure.
kind of how you were saying where earlier where the men, the husbands, like your husband saw you working allowed him to explore other
Yeah.
things. It gave him a little bit more freedom
Right.
too. Because now the way, especially the way things are, like my husband's no, we need your income, honey. We need you to work.
Same at my house. Same at
Because
my
I'm like,
house.
yes, yeah. And now he's, honey, I want you to find your perfect or close to perfect spot, somewhere that you find yourself happy
Mm,
and you're fulfilling and you're enjoying the work that you're doing and you're using your skills. We're kind of on a deadline for you to figure that out, and
mm,
which I respect. So I'm like, yeah, no, I know. Because he has a very good job. He's an engineer and he's been working at the same company for almost like 14 years, which is almost like he found a job maybe like 6 months out of college and he's stayed there because they treat him well, they pay him well, he's engaged by the work, and he's had the same boss too the whole way through,
mm.
and his boss is amazing too. So it's like it's always been super fun for him. And so I'm like, that's amazing. Good
Mm.
for you that you hit like the trifecta where
Yeah,
with you've got your,
that's
your
rare.
groove. And exactly, especially at such a young, it's 22 out the gate,
Hmm.
he found a job and he's still there
Hmm.
like almost 15 years later. And so like I'm like so proud of him and so happy for him. But I'm like, honey, I hope you realize not a lot of people do
No.
that. That's because I think he's watched me in my career where I spend a few years here, a few years there.
Hmm.
Like as I get
Hmm.
more skilled and more experience, like I don't want to hop around a little bit, but I'm like I learn a new skill and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna switch and find another job kind of thing. Like any job movement I've done, it's because like I finished another degree or I got recruited, stuff like
Hmm.
that. But I've always tried to have a solid space whenever I hop to another job. But yeah, it's just I think just seeing my career trajectory has helped him just expand his mind. And so that's why like we were talking earlier about like the men's perspective,
Hmm.
the husband's perspective,
Hmm.
the partner's
Hmm.
perspective. And now I think now especially the job market now is just like all over the place. There's the gig economy
Yep.
where
Yep.
like people just like which I'm not against. I'm like, I'll take a contract job. I'll take a freelance job. I know I could do anything. You know what I mean? I know
Hmm.
I have so many skills, like I could do whatever you need. But yeah, it's just like something about like again, reading this book made me reflect like I'm still in a fortunate position.
Sure.
I'm still in a
Hmm.
fortunate position because based on how what other women maybe in similar positions have had to go through
Yeah.
decade after decade before now.
Oh, for sure.
Just looking at my mom too, just go because both of my parents are retired now, so I'm just like this is another book. It's funny because like, whenever I read books, I'm like, okay, like maybe I'll give this to my mom. I'll recommend it to her. So this is the book club for Troublesome Women. That's a book that I'm going to pass on when she's ready for another book recommendation.
Good.
Well, it also helps for like gifts too,
Yeah.
Christmas or Mother's Day or stuff like
Oh,
that. Like, what
yeah.
do you get for people who have everything they
No,
want? Yeah,
this book was a lot of people's gave it for Mother's Day, and it's a good birthday present, all those things, all those things. And I love to give books.
absolutely.
I give books all the time. It's my go-to gift. Because the beauty of giving a book, like it's never the wrong size or color, right? It's and most of the time, I mean, you can give something that's really, I mean, that's what I love, right? I can go to the bookstore and I know the person and I can custom choose, just the perfect book that fits in with their
Yeah,
interests. And it's like $20 or less. If it's a
yeah.
hardcover, okay, maybe it's 25, but I mean, what?
And you're maybe supporting a local bookstore, or you're
Yes.
supporting your
Right.
author, or
What
you're
else
supporting the
what
book
other kind of gift can you
industry.
give
Yeah,
that's that personal, that's that affordable? So
exactly.
books are awesome in so many ways. Yep.
Exactly. I love no, you're preaching to the choir here. There was a handful. I feel like we could go off. We could naturally talk for so long, but there was a handful of questions that I did want to ask you.
Sure.
So, yeah. So one thing I kind of want to get into a little bit is like the research, and I always ask
Mm.
authors this because also, especially authors of historical fiction, because there's just like you. I bet you got sucked down a few rabbit holes just doing. I want to explore like your research process, and did you approach it the same way that you do your other books, like fascinating things that you learned, stuff like that?
Well, I mean, the first thing I did was I read The Feminine Mystique, which I hadn't. So let me tell you how this book started.
Oh,
This book started because my mom is 92 years old, and
oh, I love that she's still here with
oh
you.
no, yeah, no, she's still with
My
me.
mom is 73, so I get
We
it.
talk
I get it. I'm
we
right there
talk
with you.
every
I'm
day,
like,
and let
oh,
me tell you, my mother is a pistol. My mother still works part-time as a consultant and gets paid pretty well for it. My mother is a quick draw.
that's
Oh, yeah,
amazing.
no, she's great. She's a quick draw with a cocktail shaker. She is a clothes horse. She is also an avid reader. So we were talking about books about 3 months or 3 years ago, and The Feminine Mystique came up, and she said, "I don't know if I ever told you, but that book changed my life." And I said, "You did not
Ah.
tell me, so tell me now." And she started talking, and just almost as soon as she started talking, I knew. I knew that I had stumbled onto the idea for a really great book. So that was where it all began. But the first thing I had to do was read The Feminine Mystique, which I had not done.
Yeah.
And my research always begins with a lot of reading of other books, and how many books that I'm going to read depends very, very much on the project. So for this book, I read The Feminine Mystique. I also read another book that was really helpful to me called A Strange Stirring. And it was by a lady named Stephanie Coons. It's nonfiction. And it was a book all about the impact of the feminine mystique, how it was received, by kind of
Oh,
societally.
what a perfect companion
Oh, no,
piece
it was
for you to
such a
read. Yeah.
fascinating book. I read, and then I read a biography of Catherine Graham, who was the first. Catherine Graham was the publisher of the Washington Post. She was the first American woman who was the publisher of a major American newspaper. I read her biography. I read a biography of Jacqueline Kennedy.
Was she made her way into your
She
story,
does.
right?
I have a
Didn't
couple
she?
of I have a couple
Yes.
of real life people, and Catherine Graham is one of them
Yep.
who plays
Name drops.
they
Yep.
play she actually Catherine Graham actually plays a pretty pivotal role, and I include some other real life
Yeah. Yeah.
historical figures. So there's that. And then of course I was trying to figure out, well, what would my book club women have been reading besides The Feminine Mystique? Because, this book like takes place over the course of about a year, so they're reading a lot of books. So I
Right.
was looking into those. And then there's just a lot of online research making sure, I was alive in 1963, but only barely. So kind of going back into the cultural things and what was going on. And, you talk about
Yeah.
rabbit holes. I went down a rabbit hole about
Yeah.
IBM Selectric typewriters for a while. I know a lot about IBM Selectrics now. And then the other thing I did, because I quickly realized, and I kind of remembered from my childhood too, but I had a better appreciation for it, is that women's magazines were hugely important to the lives of women back in the day. They were sort of the TikTok of the day, right? They were telling women like how to dress and what to cook and how to
Yes.
treat their husbands and raise their kids, and of course all the ways that they were not doing that well enough. And just like today, right, everybody, we measure ourselves by these impossible standards
Yeah.
which nobody can
Yeah.
ever live up to. So that was really fun, and I actually ended up like buying as many of those vintage magazines as I could get my hands on, and kind of look at, because I really love to have the actual, the the actual
The
physical
physical
copy,
piece.
yeah, when I
Yeah.
can. So that was
Yeah.
fun, and read some really, really, really dreadful recipes. So that was, I mean, not only were the recipes terrible, the photographs were so awful in so many cases. Clearly food
We're
styling,
so spoiled now,
yeah,
right?
no, there was no food stylists in the 1960s. Because I have a blog called Fiercely Marie, and one of the I love to cook, and I have a weekly blog, and a lot of the things on there are recipes, and I go to so much trouble to make sure the things I make look appetizing, right? You got to do the lighting. Yeah, in the 60s, no, they didn't worry about any of that. So yes, there was a lot of fun and interesting research involved with this book, as there are in all of my books.
Yeah, yeah. How did this book, releasing it, maybe writing it, or even like releasing it, how did it compare? Because you've got, like you said before, you've got so many published works under your belt. You've been in the game for a minute.
Yeah.
And so was there anything different?
Yes,
Like, was there anything different with this
there really
one?
was.
Like, did any big lessons learned that you took to this one or learned from this one,
Well,
stuff
you
like that?
always learn from all the books every I mean, every book you write, theoretically, you should be better than the last time, right? And you probably are because you've learned
Right.
things, right? It's just, writing is a
Right.
muscle, and if you work it more, it gets stronger and you get better at it. So I'm a better writer now than I was, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago when I was first published. But this was a different experience because I I though I love to write, I also hate to write. It's a struggle. I'm a slow writer, and it is really, there are times when I'm just pulling my hair out. And I got to tell you, this book really was a joy. I was so happy writing it. I loved the characters so much. I loved the story so much. I felt I had a real handle on the material. And yeah, there's always going to be rough days, but honestly, I couldn't wait to get to work. And the thing that was so strange and so different for me is, so normally when I get to kind of the deadlines coming up and I'm getting to the end of the book, I'm sort of like that trail horse you go riding when you go to that resort, and you get on that trail horse that does the same trail, and he does it like 5 times a day. And always there's a point in when he gets to like that bridge or that tree, or the horse just starts speeding up, and you can pull on the reins, but that horse knows they're almost home. There are oats and water, and they're out of here, right? So normally that's it. I'm like just going along faster and faster. Not this time. And I was going slower and slower. I was dragging my feet, and I thought something's really wrong here. And I wrote my, agent, and I'm like, this is so weird. I don't get it. And she was like, oh, Marie, you don't want this to end. And I was like, that's it. I
Yeah.
didn't want it to end. And
So
I
crazy.
knew when I was writing this, it was such a special story. And I would have this thought pop into my head, like very clear, like a neon sign over and over again. And all of a sudden I'd be writing, and it would come in, it would be, you are writing the book of your life. And I thought, this is it. I think this
Oh,
is the book of my life. I hope there will be others,
I love that.
but it was incredible from the first, and publishing it has been incredible, and the response has been incredible. I'm just so grateful for being able to write this book, for having the idea, and for being able to see it through. So it's been an amazing
I think it's
experience.
wild. Yeah, I think it's wild that this is like the first time that you experienced it. Like
Yeah.
that's like for someone who's experienced and well written as you are, years and books, and you're still learning something
Oh,
new about
all the
yourself.
time.
You're still discovering something. Like,
But
yeah,
that's what I
that's
like about writing,
awesome. I
right? There's
love that.
always more to reach for. There's no more
Yes,
audacious
yes.
act in the world than typing chapter 1.
Yeah.
It's true. It's like,
I love that. Another what memorable quote by Marie
well,
Bostwick.
no, it's
Seriously.
like
That's
you are
amazing.
just being so bold and sassy and thinking, well, apparently I believe that I have something to say that the world needs to hear. I mean, it is. And it is a daunting thing to type chapter 1.
Starting is the hardest
Mhm.
part.
Well, I don't know, middles are pretty tough
Starting
too.
is hard.
Middles are very difficult. A lot of books fall apart in the
Well, it's
middle.
just right. It's the purpose of the first draft is to be a first draft.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
like you just have to get through
No.
it, even if you
No, no,
know,
no. And it's
oh, this
true.
is
And I
trash,
go
but I'll
through
get
many,
to it
many
later.
drafts. The saying is, this isn't me, but it's a good saying. And it's true. Good books are written, great books are rewritten. And I write about, 5, 6, 7 drafts by the time readers are going to see it, sometimes more than that.
It takes the time that it takes,
Yep.
and to get it right.
Although,
If you put it
also
out at your fourth
realistically,
draft,
when you're in my profession, though, you've got a deadline. And so
yeah,
what that
right. No, you're
means,
absolutely
yeah,
right.
what
You're
that
absolutely
means
right.
is, in fact, there may be sections of time where it's just like, yeah, no, I do not leave this office. I work 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day or whatever. You got to do whatever you have to do to get it done sometimes. So, and that
Yeah,
can be rough.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, what were the most challenging parts to write? What were the most enjoyable parts to write this earlier?
Well, all of it really was enjoyable, honestly. Some of the challenging parts to write, I think, were moments when my characters weren't getting along. Because I'm like most people, right? I want or they were struggling in their relationships, whether they were not getting along, women not getting along or the marriage not, because you do feel an affection for the characters, and when they're suffering, you're kind of
Yeah,
suffering, if that makes sense. So those were always the bits that are a little more difficult to get through. But even then, mostly this book was just a real joy. One of my favorite scenes for me, there's a scene I'm not going to give away, but Viv comes home and her 6-year-old daughter is on the roof and doesn't want to come down. And that scene, and I'm not going to say more than that about it, that scene, by the time I was done writing it, I was actually tearing up because it was just, for me,
oh,
it was such a poignant, and it was motherhood in like 4 pages as far as I was concerned. So I really,
it
and the book
really,
does
yeah.
have a lot to say about mothering and motherhood. Most of the characters are
Because
mothers.
she's got what, 6 kids?
Yeah.
She got
Yes.
6 kids.
Yes.
It's
But most of the characters, and they're all very different kinds of moms, right? And that's one of the other things too.
yeah,
3 different characters who are mothers, different kinds of families, different kinds of moms, and they all love their kids, but they love them in different ways. And it works.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, 100%. And like me being a mom, I'm sure like I imagine it was fun for you to play around with those different
Oh, yeah.
perspectives and those different styles
Yes.
and those, yeah. Because even then I'm like, when I read, I'm like, yes, that one's like my second born. This one's kind of like my first.
Right?
Nope, I get it.
Yep.
I get it. Yes, it's again another way to connect to characters 60 years after the fact.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
different time periods, different situations, different. Yeah, absolutely. Because it was like I don't know if I was Vivian with a husband like Tony, I probably would have had 6 kids too. So it
Well,
was just
yeah, no, I mean,
I like it.
Tony, he's gorgeous. What are you gonna do, right? I mean, as she said, I
He
love one.
a hunk and he's supportive and he's like
Yes.
loving every shape that she's
Yep.
in and it's
But
just
even
yeah.
she is longing for a
Yep.
little something more too, and I think
Yeah.
sometimes those moments when we're also longing for a little something, it's so uncomfortable, right? But at the same time, I think
Yeah.
that can also be the signal that there may be an opportunity for something more. And maybe that's the sign, right? So, but it does feel uncomfortable at that time. And I think most of us avoid
Yeah.
discomfort.
I know, but if it's uncomfortable, that means it's like maybe it's something you should keep an eye
Yeah,
on. You know what I
that's
mean? Like even if you don't want to plunge
yes.
into it, it's uncomfortable for a
Yep.
reason,
No,
right? It's like
that's exactly my point. Yep. And I think is, but yeah,
yeah.
Tony is he's pretty hot.
I know he is. He was the dreamboat of the
Yep.
4 partners, and even when she wanted to go back to work, he was like, he didn't like, he wasn't hurt about it. He
No.
wasn't like, he was just kind of okay, honey.
But
Like,
he also wasn't, they had arguments. And I think that's an important thing.
yeah, of
He wasn't
course.
just, yes, he was supportive, but he wasn't a doormat either. And,
No, he
in
wasn't
a
because
healthy
he was concerned
marriage,
because of certain
right, in a
things.
healthy marriage, we
Yeah,
should be able to
yeah,
argue because it's just realistic.
exactly.
Differences are going to come up.
And it just speaks to their relationship where he was like, I love you and I'm not going to overlook your concerns and your ambitions, but like he felt comfortable to
Yeah,
say his piece,
right. And I
and
think that's a sign
yeah.
of that's a sign of a healthy marriage for sure.
Yes, absolutely. What advice do you have for your 4 women?
For my
For
4,
Margaret, for Charlotte, for Vivian, for Bitsy, if they're separate or together, advice, what advice do you have for the 4
you
of
know
them?
what? I would say to continue to cling to one another, because they are helping to bring out the best in each other. So even though circumstances and time and distance can bring people apart, cultivate those friendships. And by the way, you have to be very intentional to do that. So my advice for them would be to keep doing that, even when it's hard, even when they may be
Yes,
separated, but if people move away, lives change, but like, be intentional in your friendships, because those friends are helping them be their best selves, and they should be doing the same for their friends in turn. That wasn't so hard.
yes. No. Some authors, when I ask that, they have a hard time. They're like, "Oh, I haven't thought about that." Okay,
It's a
like,
good question, though. It's a good
but I
question.
think I love it. I love putting you all on the spot, and I kinda wanna know it too, because sometimes the advice, I'm like, "That's solid advice for
Yep.
everyone."
I think that's true, right?
Kinda like pay attention. Yeah, exactly. Solid, solid. I love it. Okay, so Marie Bostwick, where can we find you online and on social media?
Well, you can on social media, I am on Instagram and I'm on Facebook, and that's pretty much all I do. I don't TikTok. I just don't have time for any more social media than I'm doing right now. You can also find me at my website, which is mariebostwick.com. If you're there, you can scroll down a little bit and join. I have 2 newsletters. One is my monthly author newsletter. It is very book centric, as makes sense, but it's not just about, it's about my books, but it's about lots of books because I read a lot too. So, book
Sure.
recommendations, book things, and just, life. And my goal in my newsletters is to have something happy coming into your inbox that you will want to read. And so I work hard at that.
Yeah.
I also have another weekly newsletter that's my blog newsletter. So my blog is called Fiercely Marie. And the motto of my blog is live every moment and love every minute. And so it's a lifestyle blog. Yes, I talk about books, but I talk about life and cooking and traveling and crafts and, sometimes just what we need to cope. Like recently, I just had an archive post we redid about 10 ways to combat overwhelm, because we have all been overwhelmed. So that comes every week with a letter from me. There's always a new post, and then there's some archive posts. So that's really the best way to connect with me. Oh, one more thing. I also co-host a book podcast with 2 other writers, Catherine Ray and Rachel Linden. It's called the 10-Minute Book Talk. So it's just what
I love Catherine
it's
Ray.
yeah,
I
it's
yeah.
exactly what it sounds like, right? We interview an author every week for about 10 minutes about a new book, and it's just enough to
That's
try and like
perfect.
introduce that book. And, it's because we're all busy, right? So that's a short thing where you can say,
Yeah, sure.
yes, I want to read that book, or no, it doesn't sound like my cup of tea. So that's,
And sometimes that's all you need, like 10 minutes talking about it.
yeah.
That you can't get out of a blurb or a title, or,
No,
it's
no, and
just
hearing from the author, I think,
that's
is a really
wonderful.
great way. So, we usually just do a few quick
Oh,
questions.
100%.
You can find out about the book and a little bit about it, and then lots and lots of people go on and read the books from that after we do the interviews, which makes us really happy. I love supporting other authors.
Yes, it's so important. That's awesome, and I can attest to the Fiercely Marie being worth it at least. It's like, and I'll do a video of what is it? Not the no. I'm all I can think about is the sidecar now, the stinger.
The
I'll
vodka
do a video.
stinger. Yeah, in the book, it's
I'll do a video for
right.
it.
In the book, it's known as Truth Serum, and it definitely helps the book
Yeah,
club
there
members
you go.
open up on their first meeting, especially. So
Yeah,
that's a fun one. And I have recipes. That's another thing. If people, book clubs are big on this. I actually have a book club party kit
Yeah.
on my website, and it's got recipes, it's got a playlist, it's got, obviously the discussion questions, and it's also got a list of books to read if you want to dig deeper into some of the subject matter too. So lots of book clubs are doing this,
Yes.
and lots of them are making truth serum to serve at their book clubs. They either love it or hate it. It's a very 60s recipe.
That's hilarious though. That's how you know like you're still like eliciting emotions,
Yeah,
eliciting a feeling out of it,
for
right?
sure, for sure.
That's hilarious. Marie Bostwick, the book club for Troublesome Women. That book is available now. Thank you for so much for I feel like we could have just chatted for hours. Thank you so much for your answers and for your authenticity. And like I would love to pick your brain for I'll pick your digital brain, like what
Okay.
you already offering to the world. And I'll put the links to all your good stuff in our show notes. And if and when you're ready or you're working on something else, I'd love to chat again.
All right, great. I'd love that too. Thanks so much.
And there you go. That was Marie Bostwick talking about her book, The Book Club for Troublesome Women. That book is available now. Check out the show notes where you can find links where to find Marie online and on social media, like her blog. I actually got the drink recipe from her blog. So I definitely recommend that you guys check that out. Rate, review, subscribe. Please find Cantina Book Club on social media as well. If you need a book recommendation, check out cantinabookclub.com. Whatever genre you're into or you're looking for to try something new, there's something there for everyone. If you do finish a book that you really, one of the easiest ways to help authors get the word out there is to hop online like Amazon or Goodreads and give the book a rating and review. It really does help the authors out so much more than you guys think. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching and for listening.